What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the upcoming Battlefield game. There was an exclusive interview with IGN, and quite a few new details were dropped. The game sounds good. And the thing is, 2042, they weren't saying all of this stuff. In fact, they're doing a lot of changes from 2042. But it's important to remember that you can have the sound bites, all the sound bites that you want, but at the end of the day, the game has to deliver. Now, I'm excited. I'm excited about what we heard, and I think it's absolutely going in the right direction. But we need to see it, and I'm not asking for it tomorrow or anything, but, I'm going to withhold a good amount of judgment on the game until we can actually, start to see it and when the game actually comes out. Although they address that part too. They do say specifically in the article that they can't have another 2042 situation. The game has to be good at launch. So let's read over some of the highlights of this IGN interview. And this was from the head of Respawn and Group GM for EA Studios organization, the longest title you could ever have in your life, Vince Zampella, and he is quick to shout out Battlefield 3 and 4 in the course of sitting down with IGN to talk about these new reveals. On the decision to return to the modern era, which is a big part here, he said, if you look back to the peak or the pinnacle of Battlefield, it's that Battlefield 3, 4 era where everything was modern, but I think we have to get back to the core of what Battlefield is and do that amazingly well, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But I think for me, it's that peak of Battlefield-ness is in that Battlefield 3 and 4 days, so I think it's nostalgia for players, for me, for the teams even. Those are kind of the heyday, although I would say for 1942 also. He talks about, although it was ambitious, the 128-player maps also proved unpopular with fans who preferred a more focused experience. Battlefield 2042 eventually went back to supporting 64 players per map, and the next Battlefield plans to stick to that same approach. He said, yeah, the 128 player, did it make it more fun? Like doing the number for the sake of the number doesn't make any sense. We're testing everything around what's the most fun. So like you said, the maps, once they get to a certain scale, become different. It's a different play space, and I think you have to design around that. So we're designing something that is more akin to previous Battlefields. I'd rather have a nice, dense, really nice, well-designed play spaces. Some of them are really good. I can't wait for you to see some of them. Specialists are also out. He said he wasn't there for 2042. He doesn't know the rationale, but he says classes are kind of the core of Battlefield, and we're going back to that. He's careful to stress that 2042 wasn't a failure, despite it not doing as well as hoped. He notes that the development team really spent a lot of time learning how to adapt it and getting things back. Still, he says EA doesn't want a repeat of the experience it had with that game. We want it to be good out of the gate. He talks about the fans, which I think this is really good. Yeah, it's definitely betting bigger on Battlefield. It's going in and expanding what Battlefield is. We have to have the core. The core Battlefield players know what they want. They've been with us forever. They've been amazing supporters. We need to earn their trust back and get them back on our side, and then it's expanding out and getting more players into the universe and seeing what we can do. So when you want a different experience, you don't have to leave Battlefield. You can experience more things within the Battlefield universe. So we're expanding the offerings we're giving. They talk about Call of Duty, and he actually says something that's just not true. He says if you look at the best Battlefields have outsold some Call of Duties and the other way around, back and forth. So I think it absolutely can in terms of Battlefield beating COD. However, IGN even points in that basically even the best Battlefield games still did worse than, say, the lowest Call of Duty game. So we're going to kind of just skip that part. That part, I just feel like he either lied or he just didn't know the actual numbers. So they talk about basically next year. It's unclear when the next Battlefield will release, but there's signs that EA is ramping up for 2025, having entered full production earlier this year. According to him, EA is playtesting the game every week and plans to launch a community program next year, though it's unclear if it's a closed beta or something else. We have a program that we're going to announce next year around getting more community in, because that's kind of the core of what we have to do. Get the community back on our side, get that trust back. So I think we're in a really good place. Is it challenging? Of course, but it wouldn't be fun if it wasn't. And so we'll kind of stop it right there. Besides the Call of Duty, Battlefield thing, I like hearing more and more developers talking about the fans and like giving them what they want, or just the respect, even just the respect, right? Because different people want different things. Different people are going to buy it, not buy it, whatever. But, what you hear in this article about the core. The core is so important. It's almost two separate times he talked about it, right? Like he talked about the importance of the core and expanding it, but you got to get those people back. And then, the play test kind of stuff or the community type program, right? So I think they know that in the last little while, and not even really just with Battlefield 2042, but it was kind of an ongoing thing. They were losing people. They were. And I would say the overall like Battlefield nation, right? Like the diehard Battlefield fans have been depleted. It's not like they're completely gone, so maybe depleted isn't the right word, but they're weaker in numbers than what they were, right? So you've got to get them back. And I can appreciate, again, like it's all talk. It's all talk until you actually see action. But it's all talk with an important thing that you kind of have to say, right? Where it's like, we know we've lost your trust. More importantly, we know we've lost the core Battlefield players' trust. So what we're going to do is we're going to get them back, and then we're going to expand to get everybody, around them. And that's what you like to hear. Now, you can say you want them back all day long. If the game doesn't deliver, you're not getting them back, right? But acknowledging it is the first step to solving that problem, is it not? Right? So it's like I can like that. And to be fair, the things that they're talking about in terms of actual improvements, like Battlefield 3 and 4 to me is also kind of the peak. I mean, like Bad Company is elite. Bad Company 2 is one of, if not the best, Battlefield games. I know a lot of people like Battlefield 1. So there's been good Battlefield games outside of it. Okay, I'm not saying that, but when I came into Battlefield was actually Battlefield 3, and I really enjoyed 3 and 4. So I'm kind of like the person or the fan that he's talking to when he talks about the pinnacle. And, at first it's more about like the modernness, where it's like, okay, versus going back in time versus going forward in time. But then he also says just like the overall experience. And I liked seeing that part to the interview, right? The experience with 3 and 4 is kind of peak Battlefield. That was the era of like the best of Battlefield. And it's probably also when it did generally the best. I mean, Battlefields have always done well, and some games did better than others, but that's when it did really well. So let's get back to that. I like to hear that too. And then, they talk about what those changes actually are, right? Specialists out, classes back in, maps, basically, whether the maps are going to be smaller or not, but at least the player count, right, is a definitive type thing. The modernness of like the era and stuff. So, we're hearing a lot of good stuff. So I'm excited. Like I don't want to get too excited, but I definitely am excited. In terms of my own personal opinion, like Battlefield is my, quote unquote shooter. I'm not a huge shooter guy just in general, but if I had to pick one, like I quickly grew into Battlefield after really kind of almost growing up on COD, or like when I got my PS3, officially, I started with COD and kind of graduated to Battlefield. And it's been sad. It's been sad what's happened to Battlefield, I would say, over the last like 6-7 years. But I'm ready to go back in, like if they're willing to, make a good game. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.